G'day, welcome back. In today's episode, I don't remember learning this equation in high school, but apparently machetes plus machine guns equals multiculturalism. All that and more on this final episode for 2026 from The Mark Pirotta Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Blaster! Welcome to the Mark Pirotta Show.
Now, there is a common saying that says there's many ways to slice a pie. Or there's many ways, if you want to be a little bit more morbid, to skin a cat. The problem that we've been seeing over the course of the last 3 odd weeks is very simple. It is obfuscation and muddying the waters with the intended purpose of ensuring re-election. There is no two ways about this. The Labour government is dependent on the vote of the Muslim community. And however harsh it may seem, at some point a realization needs to come that there is an issue within that community. Now, we all agree that the majority of Muslims are not inherently violent people. However, the faith in and of itself has proven far too often throughout both the near and far history that it tends itself towards violence. Now, you may say that it is only the small minority. However, let's not forget what the Anzacs, in their first ever mission, went to go fight on the shores of Gallipoli. Yes, it was against the German occupation, but Gallipoli is in Turkey, which at that time was under the rule of the failing Ottoman Empire, which had stretched its tentacles far and wide throughout Christian Europe and North Africa and gained such power as to be a force to be reckoned with. Their flailing led to them joining the Germans, and Australians fought and died in order to preserve the Christian cultural heritage of the lands that existed within those spaces, the freedoms, the democracy, the right to choose, the rights of women. And so as far as it goes that Islam is a peaceful religion, it has only been so insofar as we have seen it for less than 100 years. There is over 1,300 years of history that tells us that neither should we trust. Specifically, we should not trust blindly. And in fact, we should be pragmatic in our approach because Islam and Muslims as a religion to this date are still in their infancy. They are like adolescents who are still trying to find their way, flailing at the first indiscretion, with no real central unifying body. And yet, despite that fact, with the number of Muslims who exist within Australia today, again, the majority of whom are peaceful, it is a political error to insult that group in any way, shape, or form. Now, Tony Burke is specifically beholden to this because his electorate has a rather large plurality of Muslims within that community, somewhere in the region of approximately 30%. And so it makes political sense as to why there is so much obfuscation around this matter. But the numbers so far are terrifying, tyrannical, and downright unintelligent. So far in mainstream media, the only real news we've heard about people who have come under fire through the new hate speech laws have been people who, granted, have terrible ideologies, or who, granted, may have had terrible ideologies in the past. But for 90% of the arrests to be of white nationalists rather than of Islamic terrorist sympathizers in the wake of an Islamic terror attack seems both ludicrous and planned. It is reactions like this that cause people to believe that a psyop is in place, that somehow in the wake of a very specific group of human beings causing terror throughout our society, that we turn the blinders to that we are sensitive to the feelings of people in that group who, by extension, in some way have actual blame because the texts that they use are the same, and lay the blame entirely at the feet of people who had nothing to do with this attack, who may have rhetoric which is reprehensible, but have not contributed to this violence in any way, shape, or form. Now, you might say that the Palestinian marchers in their own right also did not do this. And I, to an extent, agree. I don't believe in banning anyone's speech ever outside of clear incitement to violence. Because if you do not allow people to speak publicly, then they will speak privately. And when they speak privately, this is how you get these events. It's one of the key things that I've seen very few people talk about. How did this attack happen? Why was it allowed to happen? Why was there so little intelligence? Because as a general rule of thumb, when you live in the same household, you only need to speak amongst yourselves. There is no digital technology involved. And obviously, this father and son lived within the same household. And so this is the result. How do we as a society ensure this never happens again? We need to start differentiating what it means to be multi-ethnic from what it means to be multicultural. We need to define the term. Multicultural implies that you can bring who you are to this nation and maintain your old way of life within this country. That is not a feasible approach to any society. There's a very good quote that says, if you do not have strong borders around your nation, then you will have to build strong borders within your nation. That is to say that while we may be multicultural, our society is going to be ruled by security cameras, walls, fences, locked doors, and an insidious sense of a lack of security between disparate groups of people who have separate ways of living. It is an idea that is rarely talked about, that we call ourselves multicultural, but culture has two tiers. That is to say, there is the tier that says the rules, the way your family is structured, the regulations, the religions, the ethical boundaries that dictate what it means to be part of your group, to be part of your community, and to be part of your nation. And then there are the other cultural elements, the ones that we are so often told we cannot take those without any of the other elements. Those are song, dance, food, elements of your faith, your festivals, the traditions that you hold. Those are the things that can integrate into many societies, that you can bring and enrich a culture, enrich a society and a way of living. But the two ideas are disparate. The first tier of those is a way of living. You cannot bring your way of living into anybody's household, let alone their nation. What you can bring are the elements that enrich, not the elements that enshrine your own ideology onto a nation that already has its own. Unfortunately, making these sorts of little please do's is kind of essential. I enjoy doing it just for the fun of it, but at the same time, if you want to get a message out, you need the people in your community to just comment, like, subscribe, all of the normal jargon, right? Please just take a moment and give me a hand. We need to create a culture of commentary together. And I love the messages coming in my DMs. Put it in the comments section so that everyone else can see it too. Thank you. Let's listen to Chris Mintz.
We are currently looking at taking action at everything from hate preachers in our community to providing expert counselling and help for the local community, as well as ensuring that Jewish life can return to a place like New South Wales. And that might mean changes to security, to CSG, to even working with the Commonwealth for the extraordinary step of an army presence on our streets, particularly as Operation Shelter begins to change in its operation and outlook.
If you do not have strong borders around your nation, then you will have strong borders within your nation. Now, we saw this with the terrible policies of Joe Biden over in America, who allowed somewhere in the region of 14 million people to cross the border illegally and unvetted. Now, we don't have that problem here in Australia. The problem we have here is suicidal empathy. We are so empathetic and so laissez-faire in this nation that we think that everyone from around the world must share our ideas of freedom, of prosperity, our laissez-faire attitude, our she'll be right attitude, our libertarian values. There are very, very few nations on earth that inherently share those ideals. As a consequence, we now have to have the military patrol our streets to defend our nation, our citizens. Does that not mean that we are at war? That we are at war within our own borders? On what planet do you need your own army to defend your own nation inside of your own borders, outside of an invasion or the threat of violence from people who do not wish your citizens anything other than harm? What is the definition of war if that is not it? The military will be patrolling our streets on one of the most fun holidays that we do within our city. New Year's Eve in Sydney is shown around the world. And in order to keep that festive spirit safe, we need the military. Not only that, police officers will now be given machine guns. In the meantime, speech is being banned across the country. And we're somehow being told that this is the way that multiculturalism has to look. And this is a good thing. This is what we need in order to ensure that we have a gorgeous melting pot. But the melting pot is only good if it tastes good. You cannot tell us that you're creating a melting pot or a hot pot, serve it up to the customer, it tastes like trash, and then say, no, you have to love it. And not only that, we're going to take 50% of your day's wages to pay for that hot pot. Every day, every week, every month, for the rest of your working life. And now, in many states, also after you're dead. Tell me, Chris Mins, who, mind you, has been strong in this, strong but still blind, how are we not at war? Let's listen to the next clip.
For our community is the most important responsibility of any government. And the truth of the matter is that we failed in that on the 14th of December, and I'm not going to make the same mistake twice.
The issue is that you didn't fail on the 14th of December. You failed when these men were allowed into the country and allowed to stay in the country. And obviously this doesn't mean you, because Australia has had this suicidal empathy for decades. We had ASIO reports about the son. He was allowed to go to the Philippines, where we know that there are terrorist training camps. We have failed specifically over the last 5 years in calling out Islamic terror for what it is, Islamism for what it is. We have failed in allowing protests for a nation that means nothing to us and will never mean anything to us, for both sidesing an issue that cannot be both-sided, for having empathy for one group while simultaneously ensuring that anyone else with grievances is shut down and called racist. And you continue to fail specifically in this, that you will not name the evil for what it is. Let's make something very clear. Over the course of history, far more people have died at the hands of Islamic terror, Islamic expansion, and Islamic ideology than ever died under the Nazi movement. Still to this day, North Africa is plagued by Islamism. Nigeria specifically has seen more people die in its borders right now than it did during its own civil war. That isn't due to right-wing extremism. It's due to Islamism. So call it out for what it is. I've said this once and I'll say it again. Islam, until it can create a central pillar of what it means to be a Muslim, the precepts of which have to be dictated specifically for the soul, not for the body and not for the body politic, then we have to be pragmatic about it. I'm not saying that you should fear the Muslim who you've worked with for 10 years. I'm not saying that you should fear the friend that you had, or the friend who you play soccer with, or the mate that you've known forever because he practices the Islamic faith. What I'm saying is this: there are cells that are growing within our community. We all know it. There are entire suburbs that are taken over entirely. You can't walk through the streets with a camera and not be shut down. We just watched videos out of Minnesota over the course of the last 24 hours with Nick Shirley going out and doing some of the best journalism ever. where Somali migrants had built fake fraudulent daycare centres and medical centres in order to rip off the government. These sorts of things happen all the time. Australia is no stranger to that. We've seen reports recently of Islamic communities who have 3, 4, 5 wives, all claiming childhood support under the same household. None of them married, all of them claiming that they are single, but we all know how Islamic marriage works. It is polyamorous, 1 man, up to 4 women. And as a result, the fraud that is seen within these communities is rising. The issue is, at this point, it is technically within their legal rights. So can you call it fraud? Technically, no. Does it pass the pub test? I don't think so. Let's watch this.
Look, you got to give me the opportunity to have those conversations. But the security protocols and resources are going to have to change in Sydney. And they've changed in Rome, and they've changed in Paris, and they're going to have to change here. I mean, anyone who's suggesting that we can just have the same regime, the same process that we had in place on December the 13th is wrong. Those days are over.
There's that word again. That's twice now in the space of almost less than a week. Twice that we've heard the word regime. Now, mind you, when it comes to the word regime is such a specific term. How many of you have ever used the word regime? Ever in your lives? I seriously can't think of a single time where in a normal conversation I'm saying the word regime. It's just not something that's part of the average vocabulary. And so why is it suddenly coming out? Chris Minns and Chris Bowen have both used it within the space of a week. This has to be some sort of Labor Party talking point, something that is said behind closed doors that is somehow spilling out into the public. Now, dealing with this specific content of this clip, why do things have to change? Why does our way of life have to change as a result of what happened? Why do we need police officers with long arms walking through the streets? Why do we need machine guns on our police officers for New Year's Eve? Why do we need the army at New Year's Eve? Is it because multiculturalism is working? Or is it because we are afraid of the policies that we have pursued for the last 10, 15, 20 years? The suicidal empathy that has caused us to ensure our own destruction. The scary part of this is, how do we fix it outside of what we are doing, outside of a military state? I don't see how we can. And aside from that, and an even larger issue is this: they're targeting the wrong people. Who do you think it's going to be that is going to get arrested? White nationalists or Islamists? So far I've seen one, not even an arrest, just a shutdown of a community centre. That's what they're always called. It's just a mosque that was preaching hate speech. Outside of that, something like 20 arrests of people who have made comments online that are anti-Semitic, made phone calls that are anti-Semitic, have tattoos that are anti-Semitic, worn t-shirts that are anti-Semitic, shouted anti-Semitic slogans while out in public. Sure, it stinks, it's gross, you don't like it. Give the guy a fine. Give him a ticket. Just say, you're being rude and obnoxious. Here you go, have a $40 fine, $50 fine. Rack those up. Hey mate, go get that tattoo removed. That's expensive enough, if I'm really being honest. You get a warning, go get it removed. Chances are he got it in prison because he had to join a gang, or he would have been stabbed by the multitude of people in there who decide to code group while they're in prison. You do not know. What I mean to say by this is very simple. It's this: if we continue to assume that the right way to deal with the multicultural issue in this country is that we need to have more security, and that we cannot trust our neighbor anymore to simply be a good neighbor, then we are clearly breaking away from the principles that built this nation. Do you understand why Christian rule works? Because our Christian rule is very simple. We have 2 laws under the Catholic faith. Love your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, yes, our specific law, when it speaks about God, speaks about the Catholic God. the Christian God. And yet, if you love your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul, and you live your life and you enrich your soul to reach your God, and you love your neighbor as yourself, then you will fit within our way of life. Look how far we have gone away from those core principles that we can so little trust our neighbor that we need an army to separate us. This is dire straits. I'd love to be positive leading into the new year. But it is time for Australians to harden themselves, to prepare themselves for what is coming. This is not going to be easy. COVID time was the test ramp for what is on the way. If you thought that your freedoms were oppressed during COVID, you do not know what is coming. There will be another attack. We all can feel it. It's the reason that Bondi is empty, that so many people are not planning on going to the New Year's events, to the extent that Chris Minns had to say this.
Are we expecting lower crowd numbers this year?
Look, I hope not. I can understand there's a natural human instinct to say, I'm concerned about what's happened. I'm concerned. Everyone would be, but we have to show defiance to these terrorists. We have to genuinely thumb our nose at it. I mean, in their perverted ideology, they would want people to stay home and not spend time with their family and friends. They would want people to crawl up in a ball and not live their life. The purpose of the terrorism is actually to say to the community in Bondi and New South Wales, we don't want you to live your life. And I think there's a good opportunity for parents and members of the community to show that they're not going to be cowed or intimidated by terrorists, and that they will celebrate with their family and friends. Now, that means that we have to have a massive police presence. We need to have huge security available on the scene during New Year's Eve celebrations. And yes, in many cases, it'll be confronting for members of the community to see police with big firearms and machine guns, which aren't normally the case on Sydney streets. But I don't make any apology for that.
It is really, really hard to sit here and pretend as though we aren't all terrified. There was a police station within a 2-minute jog of where this took place. You do understand that, don't you? You can cordon off the entire area. You could have the best security on earth. You don't know what you don't know. What happens when the next father and son decide to create some bombs and this time they go off? What's going to happen if there is an actual terrorist event again at New Year's Eve? With all the security in the world, already creating fear. You've said it yourself, Chris. People are going to be afraid, rattled, to see police walking around with long arms, with army present, with the heightened security. You want to make people not feel terror? Stop that from even being a thought process that can sit on their minds. That is a necessity. That is a hard line to toe. I understand that. That is a hard decision to make. I understand that. At this point, the only thing that makes sense to me is this. I said it in, I think, my last episode. Good Muslims, stand up, take control of your community. Because I promise you, if there is one more attack, the Australian people will rise up. We will not sit silently. And we won't allow for the soft peddling of left and right, Muslim and Christian, white and brown. You need to stop this at the source. And it is your responsibility to do it. Because if you don't, the good Muslims, right? When good men don't stand up, bad things happen. Go watch Spider-Man. When you have these powers and you do nothing, the bad things happen because of you. If you know, if you sense, if you have even half a feeling, say something. Do something. Speak to someone. Do not be silent, or at some point you will be sent out of this country. And we don't want that. I don't want that. I have friends who are Muslim. I don't want them rounded up and sent out of here. I want them integrated in our society. I want them just as safe as I wish to be. We can only achieve this if you, the people who are embedded within these communities, who go to these mosques, who listen to these preachers, have the spines to stand up and say, hey, I like my freedom here. I like being able to practice my religion. I like being able to walk down the street and not worry about a bomb going off over my head. I like that I have food, that I have social security, that I have free healthcare, that I get to play cricket with my mates, soccer with my mates, that I get to go to the beach and have a run. Take this upon yourselves. This is your cross to bear, or in your case as Muslims, your cross to put on John or Judah or whoever it is you think took the cross away from Jesus, sacrificed himself in order to save Jesus in your minds. But from our perspective, it is time for you guys to take up your cross, bear it. It won't be easy. Could be your cousin, could be your friend. See something, say something, speak up. Stop us from having to be scared of you. Let's just watch this last one. Big Albo once again blocked calls for a royal commission. And once again, our fearless leader, Mr. Tony Burke, came up with a whole bunch of drivel.
Richardson Review will do is decide facts. Where royal commissions are not as good is to consider things that are not agreed, where people have differences of views, and to enable, which is what it would do, a repetition of some of the worst elements.
In terms of urgency, there has never been a royal commission which has been capable of acting with the speed that this inquiry will deal with. If you were to make those issues subject to a royal commission, it is not simply the people who feel they have been harmed by things that have been said or slogans that have been used who will be called. It will also be those who have made those statements. They will make submissions. They will, under a royal commission, be platformed, and all of that happens again. All of that happens again and gets relived. Now, no one can tell me that that is in the interests of unity, to re-platform some of the worst voices. But a royal commission, by definition, does that, and does that publicly. Now, I understand why families and different people would call for it. You know, you understand, you have the worst action, you think, oh, well, this is the biggest response. You understand why it's a logical starting point. But when you then look at, is it the right way to deal with national security? The answer is no. Is it the right way to deliver unity? The answer again is no.
So let me get this straight, Tony. Something like 13 out of the 15 family members have called for a royal commission. Something like 80% of the Australian population wants a royal commission. And you believe that it's not in the interest of unity. What is your idea of unity, Tony? And mind you, ¿por qué no las dos? Why can't you do both? Have the speedy review and do the royal commission. What are you afraid of? What would be the issue? Don't tell me that you're going to have to platform some bad voices in a royal commission. Make them speak. Make them speak to real people, the people who are affected by this. Make them look them in the eye. By your logic, we should never have a court system in this country, because victims would have to listen to the perpetrators say their piece. Hey, if the Royal Commission, which has to look into radical Islam, pops out, as I'm sure you believe it will, that there is no issue within the Islamic community, then won't this cause more unity? You know what the result will be. That's why you are terrified. The result will simply say this: Islam in its fundamental form is not compatible with Australia. That's what it will say. Plain and simple. If you thought in any way, shape or form that this review was going to pop out something positive for the Muslim community, you would do it. If you thought that this Royal Commission would go in and show that the actual issue was right-wing extremist violence, you would do it. But you know that a royal commission will destroy your worldview, decimate it. You will never win another election. The Labour Party will be thrown into the garbage bin. This is not your choice to make. I'll be very honest, it really isn't. There is a petition right now, 350,000 signatures to remove Albo. There is another petition right now, something like 50 to 60,000 signatures for a royal commission. On what planet do you have the right to dictate from the top down what we do and not do in this country? There are calls from the public for this Royal Commission. Do both. Do your fast review, do your Royal Commission. The victims whose families lay dead on the ground, on the beach, want this Royal Commission. You want to sit here and say that you know better. You are a disgrace, Tony Burke. You lied to the Australian public once already when you said that the government played no part in returning the ISIS brides. You have hidden and swayed decisions in order to bring Gazan refugees into this country. Something like 90% plus Gazans voted for Hamas. That means 1 in 10 of the people that you brought in are probably decent people. You are a joke, Tony Burke. All right, let's get into the cricket. Sick of being sick of our politicians. Test cricket has copped a big one. 2 days of a 5-day test have been completed at the MCG. The Boxing Day test, no less, which is the biggest test of the calendar year, every year, no matter what. We got 2 out of 5 days. Something in the line of $25 million has been lost as a consequence. The MCG is reeling. The organisers are reeling. The players don't mind too much. They get a 3-day break. Let's listen. This is 7 News discussing it. Let's watch.
To the Boxing Day test, Cricket Australia will be forced to refund tens of thousands of tickets as the MCG sits idle on what would have been a sold-out Day 3 of the Boxing Day test.
Andrew McCormack is at the MCG this morning. Not many crowds there, Macca. The curator, though, will be facing the music later this morning.
He will. Matt Page, MCG curator and chief executive, Stuart Fox, will front the cameras around 9 o'clock this morning. You've got a gentleman here all the way from England. You're part of the Barmy Army, sir?
Yes, that's true, yes.
Yeah, your tickets to Day 3, and here you are.
Well, I'd like to have a word with the groundsman.
What would you say to Matt Page?
He's killing Test cricket. It's a 5-day game. It's over in 2 days. It's a spectacle. How much has Cricket Australia lost?
Yeah, well, about $10 million are going to be in a black hole. So what do you do?
Why don't they just play more cricket? Controversial statement. Okay, so Test cricket decided to go for 2 days. It was still entertaining, don't get me wrong, but it was in the way that 1-day cricket is entertaining. You know, the ODI series is not an unentertaining form of the game. But it's interesting in that way where you're sort of rushed, you've got all the energy in the world, you can throw the ball because you know you're only doing it for max 10 overs in a day, and then you're done, you don't need to go back and you'll be okay. But that's not what Test cricket is. Test cricket is an ebb and a flow. I saw a comment that popped up that basically said that England did this, that they came out batting like crazy people, and the pitch played a part, don't get me wrong. All right. I mean, when you were watching that test match, that pitch was doing all sorts. But there are plenty of pitches that do all sorts. Have you ever played in India? Have you watched a game in India? I clearly have not played in India. Those pitches are cracking before the players even get out there. The first land of a foot on an Indian pitch and the whole pitch just cracks like there's been a massive earthquake through the entire pitch. Bad pitches exist. Test cricket is meant to be there as a mitigating factor to that. You're meant to be the best batsman, the batsman who can block and block and block. Mate, you go 3 overs without seeing a run. And then all of a sudden, something happens. Those cracks just sort of start to even out just a little bit. The ball just softens up just that little bit. It doesn't quite take the edge off the seam just as much, and it softens up. So it's a batsman's problem, it's a bowler's problem, but the way that England played this test match was basically this: go hard or go home. And they won as a consequence. First time, mind you, in something like 11 years. I believe it was over 5,000 days since their last victory here in Australia. Why don't they just keep playing? The tickets have been bought. Just do ODIs for the next 3 days. Roll through some different bowlers. You can do 3 friendly matches for the rest of the tournament. Do 40 over spells. A general test cricket day is about 80 overs. Okay, so just do 2 40 over sets each day. Go from there. Heck, play a second test. Make it a 3-day test. See what happens. People have bought tickets. They want to come and watch the cricket. They're not just there to sit around for, 8 hours and only watch the ball being thrown. They're also there to have a beer, chat with mates, get super sunburnt, wear a silly costume. Keep playing cricket. It's not as though they were so tired that they couldn't. Let's put it this way, okay? Test cricket is not about the match finishing in 2 innings each. Test cricket is about 5 days, 80 overs, get to the end. Can you fight it out? Okay? In my time watching Test cricket, I've seen more draws than I have seen wins and losses. Because back in the day, Test cricket used to go for the full 5 days because people were worried about getting out. In today's pitch and the way that England specifically play their baseball, this is the consequence that we've got. $10 million in the hole, you heard him just there. And that's just Cricket Australia. God only knows how much. I believe that they were doing food trucks, which was really good, by the way. Well done to the caterers, that they did food trucks out to local homeless shelters and the like, which, by the way, in Melbourne, there's quite a few of those. No dig to Jacinta Allen. But why don't you just continue playing? 80 overs, 40 overs apiece, 1 innings each. You do 3 friendly matches. Doesn't count to anything, okay? Just going out. Doesn't need to be crazy. Get the commentators in there for a couple of overs. Make it a spectacle. Make it part of the game. Enjoy the cricket. Enjoy the cricket for what it's meant to be. All right? Especially for the fans. Heck, go do your practice and your training the next couple of days. That can be warm-up for the next test match. I get it. The guys are tired. They're sore. It's test number 4. They've got to go back to back, go to Sydney next week and do the New Year's test. But at the end of the day, people have paid for this. It is your job to do this. Play the game, entertain the crowd. Just keep playing. 3 more days. Heck, do 2 days. Most people don't expect a 5th day, and normally tickets don't get released for the 5th day until the 4th day is done in Test cricket these days. Just book in those next 2 days. So yeah, we'll play an ODI. We'll have some fun with it. We'll play it more like a T20. Big shots. Not really caring about it. Go have some fun. Show people what you can do. Give younger players a chance. Let them come out. It doesn't have to be set teams. Just enjoy it. Make it like Park Cricket Day. Bring people in from the crowd to take a couple of bowls. Right? You catch a 6 in the crowd, you get to come out and play the next over. All right? If you get hit for 6, I don't know what happens. Some humiliation ritual of some sort, similar to the style that you do after fantasy football. That's my take. That's it. I don't believe that I'll do another episode on New Year's Eve. I will be discussing what has been and what will be with my wife and planning for next year. In terms of my plans for next year, if you are interested, I now have 2 book ideas. I've got one of them, which is more just going to be a compendium, and I will definitely be releasing a book. I'm thinking probably around end of February, March at this point, if I keep the pace up that I'm at right now. If you're interested in getting a pre-release copy of that book and editing for me, that would be great. Just give me your opinion. Specifically, if you disagree with everything that I speak about or the majority of things that I speak about, I want contrary opinions. I want cultural opinions. The book is about culture. And so if you are from a diverse background, shoot me a message, leave a comment somewhere. My DMs are open pretty much everywhere. So you are more than welcome to do that. Always just reach out to me. If I say something that you dislike or if I've crossed a line somewhere, let me know. Trust me, you can't say anything worse than what my dad says to me because he roasts me so much. Love you, Dad. Other than that, everyone, Happy New Year. I hope you've enjoyed what we've put together so far. There are more interview style stuff coming next year as well, but I'm not going to spoil too much. Got some cool contacts that I'll be reaching out to and putting things together as well. I've really enjoyed my time with you guys. You'll see me again on Saturday, the 3rd of January. Until then, Happy New Year. My name is Mark Pirotta, and this is the Mark Pirotta Show. God bless.